that's set up slightly differently. So they didn't quite need the full contact center environment within that. So they have slightly different licenses, which means that they get the call straight to them. But we're also using it so that their customers can leave specific messages. They will pick that up afterwards, because every single one of those calls is extremely precious, because it could literally mean the difference between life and death. And I don't want that to sound over dramatic, but that is the case.
Welcome back to the Teams Insider podcast. You know we like to get a customer perspective on the podcast, and this week is a really good one. We had Kathy from Derby City Council, and she takes us through how the council went on their journey from PBX to Skype for Business and then fully to Teams Phone. She looks after the phones and networks teams there, and also how they're using Luware for their contact center requirements with Teams. Really interesting. It's lots of different services, lots of different departments, around 5,000 people in total, I think. Really great conversation. Thanks to Kathy for taking the time. Also, many thanks to Luware for sponsoring the podcast. Really appreciate their support of everything we're doing. Hope you enjoy the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Always exciting to get a real world customer perspective on the podcast. And quite a lot we spend time talking to enterprise customers. So it's great to talk to a slightly different customer scenario and an interesting and complex one at that. Multiple guests on this pod. Kathy, could I start with you introducing yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Kathy Anderson. I work for Derby City Council and I manage the networks and the telecoms teams.
Awesome. Thanks, Kathy. And Carl?
Yeah, for sure. Hey guys, I'm Carl. I am a solution architect at LoopUp. So I work with Kathy in kind of migrating it to Teams and all those good things. So I'm sure we'll get into it.
Awesome. And Ollie?
Yeah, hi everyone. Ollie Lively, head of sales here at Luware. I worked with Kathy in the Derby team and the LoopUp team in their contact center implementation.
Awesome, thanks. We got the whole gang here, so we're going to get into it. Kathy, first of all, can you kind of talk us through, like people might not be familiar, we've got a global audience, like what the City Council do, what it looks like, number of users, because it's quite varied, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we deliver all local authority services, from social services to street cleaning to customer service environment. We've got about 95 different buildings across the whole city of Derby. For the purposes of this conversation, we also include Derby Homes, who are our arm's length housing organisation. And we also have a tenanted services offering called Connect Derby. So yeah, it's a big complex organisation with lots and lots of different requirements across lots of different services.
Yeah, really, really interesting and varied, and lots of people in field as well as in offices, I would assume.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got people who are out every day, again, for the sort of street cleaning side, to people who are out doing parking assessments, etc. But I'd say obviously that the main focus, or not the main focus of a local authority, but we have a huge amount of people from a social services point of view who are out and about in the community, working with people directly. They need to be able to contact back to the office very quickly, get hold of applications, be able to communicate really easily with our contact centre staff. So the people who might be picking up calls from customers directly, will need to be able to contact people directly. So yeah, we've also got things like the registrar service, which you perhaps don't think of as part of a local authority, but registering births, deaths, carrying out weddings. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. There is so much going on in a local authority environment. So, yeah.
It's amazing. And what did the Microsoft Teams journey look like for you? Where did you come from and kind of how did we get here?
Okay, so Carl has been on this journey with us all the way, basically. When the lockdown first happened, we were already working with LoopUp, and we were at the beginning of looking at how we were scoping out rolling Skype out to our organisation. Because we're a local authority, I know that feels like it's miles behind everybody else in a sort of Skype type environment, and it absolutely was, but we were right at the beginning of that journey, and then lockdown happened. And I'm talking about Skype just for a minute because it will lead me on to talking about
it's good to get the background. We want to know how you got there. I'm really interested.
So we had a planned rollout plan for Skype that would take us 6 months. Lockdown happened and we condensed that into 6 weeks. So within 6 weeks we rolled out Skype to an entire organisation, and this was an organisation of people that were used to working in buildings buildings. They were used to working in the council house. We had something like 80% capacity full-time in the council house at all times. So that's like our big town hall in the centre of Derby, as well as those additional buildings around the whole city. Obviously, all of those people were pretty much immediately all required to work from home. So a lot of people hadn't got laptops. They'd been used to working on a desktop situation. We had to roll out laptops. We had to get the entirety of that mobile telephony solution, if you like, out to the organisation as quickly as possible. And I'll be honest, it was a challenge. But what surprised us, and this is where I'm coming on to talk about the Teams element, is that very quickly we had an awful lot in those first few weeks of, oh, we can't do it, it'll never work. And surprisingly enough, we could do it, and it did work. And to be fair, I think that's testament to LoopUp's support within that environment. They really, really helped us understand how we could get that out across all of our organisation as quickly as possible. And the other thing that LoopUp really helped us with was very, very quickly we were being said, yeah, Skype, whatever. What about Teams? So, and that's where we came to our Teams journey. So although we had really only just pretty much rolled out Skype, we were already looking at, okay, so it's great. It does what we need it to for right now, but we need to look at what we're going to need to future-proof that. And that's where we came to our Teams telephony journey. The reason why we involved Luware within that is because we had a very outdated contact center environment as well. So we initially started to talk to LoopUp around what can we do to move to Teams, and that conversation then evolved into what can we do to replace our telephony in its entirety. And we started to talk to Ollie initially. So we started to think about what were our requirements. We were previously using a Cisco Express environment and an enterprise environment, and it was not a great experience. It was really outdated. We'd been using it for years. All of our contact center users, there were lots of things that we needed to do that were much more reactive, and we just weren't able to do that with the Cisco contact center telephony that we had in place.
How long had you had that environment out of interest?
Yes. About 15 years, Ollie.
Okay,
so it had been something that we had in various different iterations, so different versions of that Cisco environment. So yeah, we were very people were confident and comfortable with it, but it didn't do what we needed to do. So although people were confident and comfortable with it, they weren't confident with the fact that we couldn't do simple things like change scripting ourselves. So and again, I think the lockdown environment highlighted to us how much more reactive we needed to be to things. So there were emergency contact centers set up, for example. And we had to wait for our telephony provider we had to ask for a quote for it. We then had to get that signed off. We then had to get them to build it. We then had to test it. Something that
very, very, very old school, traditional.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Something that took us weeks that now takes us a day that we're able to do ourselves. So yeah, all of that sort of stuff really. So we needed the sort of, I guess what everybody would want in a contact center environment, reporting, all of being able to put yourself into not ready with particular codes, make sure that we're really capturing what our customers are contacting us about so that we can use that insight into how we are communicating with customers, making sure that leads forward through to changes that we put on the website for information. We'd kind of been doing that a bit anyway, but in a very clunky way. Luware has allowed us to really be so much more reactive and get those things that we need in place as quickly as possible. I think the other thing for Luware that's absolutely key for us is how intuitive it is. So the people who actually make the changes, I mean, I never thought I'd be able to say this in my life, but we've got our contact center team leaders being able to make changes to scripting just like that. They're not even contacting us to say, can you change this?
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
I've been in this space long enough to be back in the old UCC, UCCX, and it was 6 weeks for scripting for a contact center project. So to have that level of control and self-service is pretty revolutionary when you think back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, it's really interesting because I think that we have completely changed as an organisation, and me in particular, I think our outlook on what is possible as part of a contact centre. Because Ollie, I think some of those initial conversations that we had at the beginning, I was quite hesitant and quite sort of like, oh no, I don't think we can. Our team leaders are never going to be able to do that. I'm not sure we're going to be able to train them to do that. You need to understand the level. And Ollie was very much sort of saying, Do you know what, Kathy? I think they probably will.
We're not expecting them to script.
Yeah. No, exactly.
It's great to hear that, because obviously we build the technology so for customers to be able to do that. But then it still takes the organisation to take the plunge there. Yeah. And actually, I think some of our customers still have that traditional setup where they need to ask IT to do everything, because they're still stuck in that old mentality. The technology's there, but you still need to kind of almost be brave and taking that step to say, okay, we'll give you the reins. If something happens, we'll deal with it.
The cultural change, isn't it, of exactly. Letting people...
And that can only be driven by you guys as the organisation. So
yeah, I think it's something that we felt quite strongly about, because we're local authority. Every single local authority in the country has got budget pressures. We have only got so much that we can do with the time that we've got available. And my team are a team of 4 people. In its entirety, we support the entire of the network for Derby City Council, Derby Homes, Connect Derby, and all of the telephony provision, whether that's contact centre, desk telephony, Teams, common area phones, whatever. There are 4 people doing that. If there are ways that we can empower the team leaders basically and help them to use those tools for themselves and understand that it's not scary. And again, Ollie, I'm coming back to you on this one, because Loretta, who was involved, Loretta from Luware, who helped us do all of the training and set up all of this environment, was amazing. Basically, she really helped us through it, and she did an awful lot of that. Do you know what, guys? You are going to be able to do this, and it was a bit of a journey for us as well, because I, in particular, and others, we did start off a bit like, oh, okay. I'm really lucky in that one of the members of my team is a lady called Flo, and Flo is one of those people who will just pick something up and teach herself how to do it. So Flo and Loretta worked really well together on this, and another colleague, Gavin, they really did sort of pick that up and look at how they could do that for themselves.
That's amazing. Yeah. And are you running like different contact center scenarios within Luware? So different services, different groups?
Yeah,
how's that
we
work?
are. So we have we've got our main contact center, which is called Derby Direct, and then we've got a separate one within Derby Homes, and then we've got other high profile services that use the contact center, that use Nimbus. And they all use it slightly differently. So we've been able to tailor their requirements to what it is that we need. And we can do that even, going down an extra level by team and by person as well. So we can make sure that we've got different ways that calls are recorded by team. We've got different ways that calls are offered through. We're also using, and I should probably mention at this point as well, another thing that's been absolutely fantastic is that we have a chatbot at the top of all of our calls through to the main contact centre. So we have a digital assistant for Derby City Council called Darcy, and for Derby Homes called Ali. And
I love
Darcy,
it.
Yeah, I know, brilliant. It took us a while to come up with those names. We wanted something that was non-gender specific, but didn't sound pants, basically. Rubbish.
Yeah.
So those were the names that we came up with. But so basically, Darcy deals with all of those low-level queries that really we don't need to put through to a contact. So, what time can I do this? How do I do that? What happens when? Those kinds of high-level queries. And we work hard to kind of, and that will be an evolving piece of work that we're doing there. But when it is suitable for a call to come through to a customer, the flow of that call and how we've built that works really well. And again, it depends on what the customer wants to how that piece is configured underneath, and how that gets to the contact center advisor or to the specific service. So some people who use the contact center technology only answer calls for their service. So the council tax, the benefits guys, they're very specialist. Whereas within our Derby Direct, our contact centre environment, they deal with calls from so many different, all those services that I mentioned at the beginning of the call, they pretty much take the first line for all of those, including the social services call. So they need to
and when they get those calls, what is provided to them so they know?
Yeah.
And so they've got the context there. How did you give them the right information?
So the call comes through to them, and they are clear which path the customer has chosen to get through to that call. So they know what the call's about. They're expecting, it's not like they're not picking up a call blindly.
That horrible experience we've all had where we go through an IVR or a voice prompt, we say all our issue with them, and it's like, how can I help you? No context.
Precisely, and you feel like you're just like, oh gosh. So our customers know that our staff know what it is that the customer is calling about initially, and they will also know that they will have already been through that initial triage, if you like, type call. So they'll be confident that of the level that customer is coming through to them. I just want to mention our out of hours service really quickly as well. So we have an out of hours service for emergency social care lines, social care calls called Care Line. And that's set up slightly differently. So they didn't quite need the full contact centre environment within that. So they have slightly different licenses, which means that they get the call straight to them. But we're also using it so that they can, that their customers can leave specific messages. They will pick that up afterwards, because every single one of those calls is extremely precious, because it could literally mean the difference between life and death. And I don't want that to sound over dramatic, but
no. So
that
it
is
is
the
that
case.
kind of thing.
Yeah, and obviously there are limited amounts of people who pick up that calls. But what the contact centre technology allows them to do is to not miss a single one of those calls. They are able to quickly see what that call was about, quickly see a summary of it, and then call that customer straight back. And involve third-party organisations and agencies, including police, for example, if they need to.
Ollie, is that your advanced routing, that scenario?
I think that's the enterprise routing that we set up there, is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. It also means that you don't, if you have different people, so obviously with rotors and shifts, people are going to be logging in at different times. It's not tied to those users. You just have the team of users. You have the queue there, and people can log in and out, whoever they are, any Teams user within the organisation.
Yeah.
Kathy, you mentioned the importance of like this service, particularly for the citizens. Like, I'm guessing going to the cloud and availability, was that a conversation, or was it more like, you were going anywhere? I'm thinking specifically kind of Teams Phone now being 5 nines and Luware running the cloud service. How much was that part of the conversation?
It was a part of the conversation, and I am going to do absolutely terribly at answering this question, because I don't have a technical background. So my colleague Gavin would have been having all of those very technical conversations with Carl, and also with somebody else from LoopUp called Cameron. So Cameron was involved in an awful lot of the setup in the background and how that actually worked. So apologies, Tom, I can't fully answer that question for you. Carl, you could probably do better at that than me, to be fair.
Yeah, though it's a very valid question, and when you have a customer that's looking to go to kind of Teams and have a cloud first strategy, it is a topic which comes up quite a lot. I think being happy to kind of accept that you are going that route in general, like you use different kind of modalities, so different Microsoft products, for example, you use Exchange in the cloud. It's just one of those other things where being able to fully kind of accept that this is the way it's going, you want to utilize your license to the fullest, you want to kind of do all these different things that the users want. I think you are kind of pushed a little bit to do it.
Can I just pick up on something that you've said there, Carl? That's what you just said around the licensing there. Yeah, so we had E5 licenses, so we knew that we would have the telephony element within that, and it seemed very important to us. And I appreciate what you're asking now, Tom. It kind of felt very important to us to make sure that we are as Carl says, fully utilising that licensing capability that we've got within that. Absolutely. Yeah. So it wasn't just the telephony that was part of that, that there were other things that E5 licensing environment bought for us. It just so happened that one of the things that we were looking at replacing the telephony, because we'd got the E5 license there, that helped us along with making that decision, really.
That makes sense. And Carl, what did it look like from a telephony perspective in terms of migration, like OC, DR, mix, any local gateways? Just interested in the kind of the telephony side. Yeah.
So completely OC, Operate Connect. There obviously was that kind of edge case around providing PSTN connectivity to the chatbot. So we had this kind of, we had the core kind of back office users, the voice applications, the auto attendance call queues, the Luware services, all being delivered by Operate Connect. So we'd have those numbers kind of ported via our number management team, and pre-assigned, configured, and ready to go. Then the secondary kind of scenario was, as I say, this chatbot. So what we had to do there was set up some TLS-based SIP trunks. into a cloud-hosted SBC, which is not hosted by Loop Up ourselves or Derby. It's actually like I think it's Audio Codes Live Hub. I think that's what it uses.
Probably worth mentioning that this is a third-party chatbot, not a Luware chatbot. Just to clarify.
Yeah. And yeah, so we had that set up to deliver that PSTN connectivity from Loop Up to that environment, which then was able to be utilised as that kind of first point of call for any sort of like triaging of calls, as Kathy mentioned. So yeah, from a telephony point of view, really simple OC and yeah, SIP trunking.
Carl, is it worth mentioning here the issues that we had with the SBC and the limitations that we had in place beforehand? I don't know, because if you remember, we had some real problems before we moved over to the Teams telephony with the fact that we, on our SBC that we were using with another organisation, we had some limitations within that. So we were finding that we were hitting the volume of calls that we had was restricted, so we were having some customers who weren't able to get through to us. So that was another key thing that really made a difference to us, and we knew that with Loop Up managing
going to that cloud scaling model.
Yes, awesome. Absolutely, that really made a difference for us.
Yeah, we were able to remove that kind of on-premises kind of piece of hardware and the license limitation. I think there was a good few hundred channels licensed on that SBC, so a lot of calls coming in. Mm-hmm. So being able to move to a kind of multi-tenanted kind of cloud-based solution with lots and lots of licenses from our perspective, enabled that.
And I think the thing that solved was we have very, very sharp peaks and troughs sometimes within local authority organisation. So, for example, and it's not the nicest thing in the world, but when we send out council tax reminders, we send them out in chunks, and that basically it generates huge volumes of calls.
So you can see the spikes like the way those things hit, that's interesting.
Absolutely. So this has meant that we don't have to worry so much about that, because there are certain patterns that there's no choice to sort of have to follow those patterns, but it means that we've got that peace of mind now, so that we know that we're not going to be compromising other services. I think is the key thing there, really.
Oh, because you get all the inbound for that scenario, and
absolutely,
so
and there are still people trying to call for other services, and that level of calling hasn't changed. But yeah, so that's really helped us out as well.
That's probably a nice segue to we talked about user experience, admin, and ease of admin. But what has the kind of reporting given you there? What insights have you been able to make and make those some similar changes that you just mentioned there?
Absolutely. So the Power BI reporting that we obviously use with the Nimbus, so we get all of that report. It's really given us some fantastic insight into the types of calls that we're getting. So particularly for services like Careline, for example, so the out of hours service that we wouldn't necessarily have had any volume, real idea of how many calls were coming through to those types of services that we're now using Nimbus for. So that's been brilliant. And also we can see really clearly the usage across all of the different services. So and the performance of individuals as well, I think is incredibly important for the managers of those services. So we can see, I mean, again, the reporting is just so intuitive. It's just so easy to use. It's configurable. We can change it dependent on what it is that's important for each service to be able to see. I also really love the way that individuals can see their own performance, can see how they're doing very easily and keep a track on that, and they can see the overall team as well within the. I mean, I'm veering about here between the Power BI reporting and what you can see within the Nimbus platform when you're logged in.
I think that was important for us when designing it. In Teams, everything's quite transparent across the organisation, right? I could go onto Teams and see if my CEO is available, right? And that's the nature of Teams, and therefore we didn't want to hide a lot from the end user. Like if I want to go in there and see what my colleague's doing or what if my manager's available in the queue, there shouldn't be any reason to hide that from the end user. So we wanted to keep that quite visible for the end users themselves.
Ollie, that's just reminded me of something else as well, and that's when we were using the Cisco contact center against Skype, it was really, really difficult for the guys in the contact centre because they couldn't see, because they weren't able to be logged into the contact centre and Skype at the same time, so they couldn't see the availability of people that they were trying to transfer calls through to, which was, for them, really, really difficult. Using this has completely solved that, so they can see exactly the state that everybody else is in.
And everyone's on Teams, so if they're in a meeting, if they're, in on a call, I think that's one of the underappreciated wins you get from moving your contact center to Teams, is that unified presence. It's so simple, but it's such a big win for contact center staff and the back office.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that.
And that visibility as well, as you deal with we talked about lockdown, we talked about other scenarios offline, like people working from anywhere, people needing to work from different locations. You've still got the visibility between your team and top down as a supervisor as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's meant that the contact centre guys, it's completely changed the way that they work, really, for exactly what you took. And the lockdown contributed towards that. But we did have very much an area in the building where all the contact centre guys sat, and it was always busy. I walk past it now, there's maybe 4 people there on a daily basis, so, a few more, because it doesn't matter where they are. So it also means that we can get people out, not just in their homes working from home, but at other locations where it would be more sensible for them to work, collaboratively with other services, for example. So they're not tied to just being within that area where they traditionally always sat.
Yeah, I heard, actually, I was speaking to another customer and I heard a really interesting conversation that one of the big drivers actually for them was recruitment and being able to recruit different people in different scenarios that could work from home or work from anywhere that they just couldn't do before this technology.
Yeah, and I think that's changing, isn't it? I mean, I don't, maybe this is the wrong thing to say, but I don't know about you, but I'm not sure I'd apply for a job that didn't allow me to work from home.
No, I think that's a very common, I think that's a really common sentiment now, is like some kind of hybrid, like in the office sometimes perhaps, but that flexibility, it's hard to go back, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
So, Kathy, you've given us amazing insight into this whole journey. There'll be other local authorities, councils listening, I'm sure. Kind of, what's your thoughts for them? Because they might not be as, you've gone through the whole journey.
I think through my entire experience of local authorities, and I've spent time at other local authorities, I work closely with other local authorities, we are sometimes resistant to change. I want to say sometimes, what I mean is always. And I think that's the nature of people.
It's good to be self-aware.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's a really difficult thing to, and I'm talking again, going right back to those Skype days where everyone was like, oh, we'll never work. We need this, we need that, we need that. And like, well, do you know what, guys? You can have all of that. And what you can have is that plus an awful lot more. So I would genuinely say to all those other local authorities out there, explore the options, because you won't believe how much more efficient, available, easy. There are just so many benefits to the people using it, and not just people using it, but managers and the insight that comes out of it, that it genuinely is worth exploring. And just be brave and take that leap.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time out to give us this level of insight. It's really great to hear, again, your specific scenarios and what a successful journey. Carl, Ollie, thanks for jumping on and providing the background as well. Really appreciate that. And we'll hopefully maybe talk to you all soon.
Fine.
Great. Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.
See you later. Bye.